Please join me tonight, Wednesday, July 11th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for Fight Night Live, featuring Azora Hype, Secrets of the Citadel, and Phil the Issues Guy, where we debate who would win in a fight. Jon Snow or Robb Stark, Melisandre or Dumbledore, Vader without the Force versus Sandor Clegane. Hope to see you tonight. We may be getting our Age of Heroes Long Night Game of Thrones spin-off show much sooner than what we anticipated, and there might even be a second pilot greenlit. So a UK news outlet is reporting that it has been confirmed, they use that word strongly, I use it lightly, that filming of the Game of Thrones prequel will begin this October at Paint Hall in Belfast. That is much earlier than I expected for shooting to start, but this is just the pilot, so it's not like they need the entire series fleshed out just yet. Could this mean we get the series earlier than expected? Maybe. However, don't get your hopes up too much. We're probably not going to see this pilot until 2020 if we're to believe HBO's programming president. But I still feel excited because I feel like we're getting closer and closer to finally seeing another Game of Thrones show. Next, there was a leak on the Game of Thrones wiki, which if you are a follower of mine, you know I have a love-hate relationship with wiki information. I strongly encourage people to never just use information from the Wikipedia. Go to the sources that are listed in that wiki or the wiki page and get your information. But that being said, let's talk about information that was listed on a wiki. Apparently, a second Game of Thrones prequel was greenlit and will begin production soon. Allegedly, more than a grain of salt here. HBO representatives are not commenting on this leak, but that could change in the future. But there's always been a possibility for another spin-off show pilot to occur. Even George pointed that out when he wrote. As for the other successor shows, if you've been following along, you know that we started with 4 and eventually went to 5. One of those has been shelved, I'm given to understand, and of course Jane's pilot is now moving to film. But that does not mean the others are dead. 3 more Game of Thrones prequels set in different periods and featuring different characters and storylines remain in active development. Everything I'm told indicates that we could film at least one more pilot, and maybe more than one in the years to come. We do have an entire world and tens of thousands of years of history to play with after all, but this is television, so nothing is certain. So kinda hinted that we would see at least one more spin-off pilot, which I had been crossing my fingers for, especially since people did not seem too enthused about the Long Night pilot, though I'm still stoked about it. So according to the leak, Max Borstein has created a 5-season or more series called Empire of Ash, which is about the events that led to the doom of Valyria, a catastrophic explosion caused by the eruption of all 14 flames that destroyed the Valyrian freehold, where the Valyrians, among them the Targaryens, hailed from. Many of us still remember the terrifying description of the doom in A Dance with Dragons. Valyria. It was written that on the day of doom, every hill for 500 miles had split asunder to fill the air with ash and smoke and fire. Blazes so hot and hungry that even the dragons in the sky were engulfed and consumed. Great rents had opened in the earth, swallowing palaces, temples, entire towns. Lakes boiled or turned to acid. Mountains burst. Fiery mountains spewed molten rock 1,000 feet into the air. Red clouds rained down dragon glass and the black blood of demons. And to the north the ground splintered and collapsed and fell in on itself, and an angry sea came rushing in. The proudest city in all the world was gone in an instant. Its fabled empire vanished in a day. The lands of the long summer scorched and drowned and blighted. As there's a lot of speculation on what caused the doom of Valyria, I even have a really old shitty video about it. It'd be interesting to see a series about the decline and the fall of the Valyrian freehold. And also, the many messed up things they did. They did a lot of bad shit. I'm especially interested since we're being promised intrigue and Dragon Lord factions of the Freehold fighting. The leak says we will see the economic, political, and social issues that tore the Valyrian Freehold apart, and the major theme is the fallout of, quote, military and cultural imperialism, immigration, and racial diversity. Interestingly, and I'm just not sure if this is how the leaker took it, the series seems to focus a lot on diversity, cultural immigration, and identity issues. And that it will take a look into what it means to be a Valyrian and who gets the power and prestige. I mean, George did write the Valyrians, especially the Dragon Lords, as being obsessed with blood purity, so I understand that they're gonna draw on that, but it also seems to be sort of a political statement on our current world and a bit on the nose, so I guess I'm just gonna wait to see how they play it out. In the report, it states there are already 3 political factions with concept art created around them, and the factions are called the Young Dragons, the Freeholders, and the Sphinxes. As there were around 40 Dragon Lord families vying for power, we'll probably get 1 or 2 more factions, or maybe not. I'm very interested in these factions because one of many theories about why the Doom happened is because of the squabbling Dragon Lord families trying to get more and more power. This fight for power may have led to the 14 Flames becoming unstable and destroying the Freehold. Confirmation of that theory would be so cool. What seems like a no-brainer is this series is going to focus on the origins of House Targaryen, a very minor house that ended up fleeing the Valyrian Freehold when Daenys the Dreamer saw the destruction of the Doom. Though if you ask other people, they feel like the Targaryens fled the Valyrian Freehold for other reasons. Regardless of the reason they fled to Dragonstone almost a century prior to the Doom, it was a good thing. As if Daenys' vision had not pushed her father to flee Valyria, the Targaryens would have been dead like all the other Dragon Lords post the Doom. Well, mostly. And they wouldn't have conquered the 7 kingdoms, even if it took them a bit to get all 7 together. Interestingly, the leaker states that Daenys and her father will be characters in the show, but may not be introduced in the first season. So that could mean we're starting the series about 100 years before the Doom, which I'm totally down for. I think the focus on the Targaryens, despite them being a minor house, is actually a really good idea. There are a shit ton of Targaryen fans, and this could be a way to draw in more viewers. I almost feel like there's going to be more interest in this show because there's going to be Dragon Lords, Dragons, and Targaryens than the Long Night pilot, but we'll see. Moving on, apparently Empire of Ash is going to feature a lot of diversity, which is pretty cool. There will be LGBT characters and many actors of color, and a third of the cast won't be white, according to the leaker. We're being told that several female and LGBT characters will be the core cast members as well. In fact, one of the main characters will be a dragon rider who is the child of a white Valyrian and a black foreigner, resulting in her being dark skinned with the typical Valyrian platinum blonde hair, making people doubt she's a real Valyrian. Which, while again they had that thing about blood purity of the Dragon Lord families that resulted in a lot of incest, that storyline sounds kinda cliche. There's also a former slave character who is self-made and described as a middle-aged, motherly-looking Asian woman who is a big political leader and one of the richest citizens. Best things we're being told about this series so far. First, a shit ton of dragons, which obviously you have to have with Dragon Lords. I feel like the budget for this series is going to be insane. We're also supposedly going to spend a third to half the series in Sathorios. And if you watch my Do Not Visit series where I talk about places on that continent, that place is a fucking nightmare. So I would love to see more of that nightmare fuel location, especially if it means we get a glimpse of a dinosaur. A major location featured on this continent will be its capital, which will also have a lot of characters of color and mixed race, and is described as a melting pot. This is probably this city, which belonged to the Giscari before the Dragon Lords of Valyria ripped it away. Though I'm still hoping we see Gagosis, because nothing sounds more fun to me than seeing a live-action version of the Valyrians' penal colony, where they torture the fuck out of people with blood magic and mate women with beasts. Oh, also Miguel, a praised Game of Thrones director, is attached to the pilot episode, so you know that's a good sign. Apparently a lot of detail is going into this series as well. I am happy the creators have basically written Bibles of backstory and world building, but I'm also not so sure about the fact they took a lot of information from the wikis. That the creators were taking a lot of information from the wikis actually makes me so nervous. I really hope that they used it just as a jumping off point and then took the sources that are listed and researched it themselves, because wikis are fan-made, and that's great, and I applaud their effort. A lot of great work goes into the Game of Thrones and the Song of Ice and Fire wikis, but there are also a shit ton of errors in them, and you have to be so careful when you get information from them. So I really hope they're being careful about this, and it's the same thing I had always told my students. The wikis are a good jumping off point. They are never your primary source. And I have to believe if they went to such lengths to create this series and have all these seasons, that is what they did. I'm also saying this while making a video off of a leak posted on a wiki, so God help me. Though I find it fascinating that it's stated the series Bible also includes a season 1 outline that is 10 episodes and over 200 pages in length. It also includes professional quality illustrations and a new map of pre-Doom Valeria in the style of the Lands of Ice and Fire. That sounds amazing and so well thought out, so maybe my fears are for nothing. I don't know. So what are your thoughts on Empire of Ash? Do you think this sounds more exciting than a series on The Long Night and The Age of Heroes? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.